So yeah, appreciate all of you joining us today. This is a combination webinar with both the Startup Grind Boston community and the Prepare for VC community coming together as the Startup Oasis. We also partner with the Boston New Technology Group, who helps us promote and collaborate on all our events as well. And yeah, so really excited to host this webinar on crafting the perfect minimal viable product, the MVP. Super important topic for entrepreneurs at every stage. You know, whether you're coming in to craft your first version of your technology, or you're looking to improve an existing technology and test out new features. So yeah, just to give a quick background and intro on both organizations. Prepare for VC started as a startup support, consulting, and advisory company. It's transformed into accelerator, startup community, and really a place that you can turn to figure out where to go next in your startup journey, what resources to connect with, and who to get involved and learn from in your entrepreneurial pathway. And Startup Grind itself started out Silicon Valley. It's got to be close to 15 years ago now, and it's transformed into 500 different chapters around the world, all hosting different events and promoting entrepreneurship to the local communities, learning from experts, entrepreneurs, and other speakers we bring in to enhance the entrepreneurial ecosystems. So yeah, really excited to have everyone involved here. Want to welcome all of you to introduce yourselves in the chat, share a little bit about the startups or companies you're working with, get to know each other, and we can also use that for any questions along the way. And yeah, with that, definitely want to hand it over to Carlos and Alejandra, talk about to introduce Globalis and kick off the workshop today. Great to have both of you here.
Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. I will share my screen. I am sharing right now. I don't know.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, thank you, Ale. So, hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you, Prepare for VC, and especially Jason, for inviting us to this virtual space. Thank you all of you for being here. Today I'm gonna talk about MVP process and share with you some tips and guidance about it. About how the story starts. Normally with a new idea, you come up with a brilliant idea for a new app or digital product, but how to make it happen? This is the question here. So, well, you should let ideas turn into a promising MVP, especially if you are worried about saving time, effort, and of course, money. In other words, if you want to succeed with minimal cost and risk, you should consider starting with the launching of an MVP. But I'm afraid it's not a piece of cake. There are a lot of things you have to deal with when you build an MVP software product. Today, I will share with you a big picture of the complete process based on 20 years of experience building software products. But to start, who am I? My name is Carlos Quiroga. I am an entrepreneur by nature and passionate about technology and programming. I am the CEO of Globalis, a software company based in Argentina that have different types of companies and startups with innovative end-to-end services. We help non-technical entrepreneurs and small companies to speed up and do much more efficient in building their MVP. So before starting, I'd like to know your expectation in terms of this presentation. How Jason said, who is attending today. So you are more than welcome to write about yourself and what you are looking to of this presentation in the Zoom chat. Please go ahead. While I'm speaking, I will read the chat in a second. But to start, if you think of in terms of MVP, this presentation could be an MVP. and to be successful, I will have to achieve the expectation of all of you. So I have to make some assumption at the beginning. For example, I could assume that among us, there are different interests, but all of you have a common one, that is MVPs. I guess you could be an entrepreneur with an idea in mind. You could be an entrepreneur who is starting an MVP and you want to be sure about the building path. Or maybe an investor who wants to explore and understand better the MVP process. So I made this presentation without knowing exactly what you want. I will propose some topics that I felt could be valuable for you. And I will deliver this first version, and then with your feedback, I would adjust some things, take others out because it doesn't add value. Therefore, the next similar presentation could be better. And this is the concept around MVP, but with something more complex to be built. So I will take a moment in the chat. I don't know, Ale, if there is some comments about it's coming, but please go ahead.
Just one comment from Marsh. He's from Stop Creeps, and
Okay.
they are planning an MVP UIs.
Great.
So yeah, I will put our LinkedIn contacts.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna talk about these topics today. Sorry. I'm gonna talk about these topics today. This is the outline. I don't know why I have, yes. Can you see, okay, my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about these topics today. There are a lot, but I will try to give you an overview of all of them. First, MVP concept and misconception, to be sure we are all on the same page. Then I'm gonna talk about the process of MVP with especially focus on the development process. Then we have a session of QA. But if you have any question at any point, please feel free to write it down on the chat and I will try to answer it. Alejandra, the head of our marketing department here with me, will help me with this. So let's start. I am sure you are familiar with the MVP concept because you are entrepreneurs, but MVP means minimum viable account the step-by-step product evolution, keeping in mind user feedback. Basically, it's a software product built with core features to be validated in the market by early adopters. So the MVP concept in terms of software solution is an iterative a problem when you build a solution and then you measure, you define metrics you want to measure, and then with the resulting information, you will update your business model and your MVP, and the process starts over again. But let's talk about advantages. I'm gonna bring some advantages here, some of them. The first one is save money. With MVP, you take a shorter path, you receive valuable feedback that enables you adapt your product and idea. Perhaps you even leave away your product idea to avoid wasting time and money. I mean, negative results are also useful results because you can pivot your idea and go back to the drawing board and begin with the whole process again. Allow us to prioritize the most important features. Also, we have our company to be, allow your company to be more agile. All the MVP concepts are broad of agile methodologies. I can say that agile is a mindset that allow us as a team move quickly and easily, to be willing to change and adapt. Also, we have ongoing improvement because you are constantly working in improvement. Also, we have finally advantages, last but not least, advantages in pricing and cost and pricing, because With the product working, you can validate your cost assumption and the price that people are supposed to pay. So I think that there are a lot of advantages. So far we have explored MVP definition and advantages, but let me share with you some common mistake and misconception around MVP. The first one is an MVP is a great way to make a quick profit. Sadly, no. The purpose of MVP is mainly to test ideas, get them validated. So we are trying to ensure that the product development move in the right direction, but it's wrong to expect quick profits from an MVP. Of course, if your MVP attract user, it will be fantastic. Nevertheless, you are only at the very beginning and a lot of iteration lie ahead, and your MVP is the best tool to learn and pilot test your ideas. So the other one, another misconception is I must build MVP as soon as possible. It's a very common mistake, jump into coding as soon as you can. Normally, this approach ends up in wasting time and money. The development stage is expensive, so before starting, you have to work in other important things and follow a well-defined process. I'm going to explain which one in a couple of minutes. Another one is I need to build the best and most complete version of my technology solution. So despite the name of a minimum viable product, I mean, product could be a little confusing, the name. We are not working in a product. We are working in a trial of my future product. So when we think about product, we think about software architecture, operations, server, maintenance, scaling strategy, reliability, and so on. We don't think deeply in these things in MVP process. We normally roughly define these things. Instead, we focus on validating all our assumptions and understand if each feature planned will deliver real value to our potential users. So this is a common mistake. The last is MVP is about new digital product is also wrong, because MVP could be also a new feature inside a software product, could be a big change inside a software process, not only a new product. So let's move on to the process of building an MVP. So before starting to dig in the process, let me say that there are a lot of ways to build an MVP. There are different approaches. I mean, it's important to fit the MVP process to different scenarios. For instance, it's not the same when you work with a solo entrepreneur or a small company with business and technical people inside the team, or even a bigger corporation with a lot of department and well-defined development process. Also depend on the know-how, business ideas stages, the industry, and so on. Moreover, building an MVP is a complex process. Luckily, we have available frameworks, best practices, and many tools that help us to be successful, which is no guarantee, but I ensure that this is a good start, because following the final process, we are sure that we take time to dig deep in some details. We anticipate problems, we learn and validate all the time, and we decrease risks at the time we are moving onward. So having said that, most of the process to build an MVP are based on these three approaches. That is design thinking, is a method focused on people, which we use to explore complex problems and to find new opportunities. Lean is a framework or philosophy used to explore and validate our assumption. To do that, it relies on small experiments. It could be our prototypes and our MVP, and expose them to customer in learning cycles. We are going to talk about this in a couple of slides. And Agile, this is basically a framework to be used in the development process. So we are going to talk about Scrum in a couple of slides ahead too. So in this presentation, I'm going to explore discovery approach, because I think it's a great approach for building MVPs. So let's go to the process of product discovery and what the process is like. So here, Fred Brooks, IBM's famous engineer, said, the hardest single part of building a software system is deciding precisely what to build. And I couldn't agree more with this quote, because product discovery helps us to figure out, and is centered around the problem space instead of chasing a future solution. So we work in this way, not in this way. So product discovery is based on people interaction and teamwork. The premise is we design together. So the more people we can bring to the table to add value, the better results. So because at the end of the day, a digital product is a result of conversation, human iteration turned into software. So this process has different stages to define our why. You can see in the bubble here, that during our business model, to define what we are going to build, to help us to prioritize these features, to define a small experiment and validate it, which is our MVP and prototypes, to discover risks. So we start plan how to manage the risk, and we start our learning path. And finally, define our initial estimation. It could be a rough estimation at the beginning, but we can also refine this later. So also inside these processes, we have activities. I put the activities here to sum up. We have interviews, empathy map, story mapping, customer journeys. So, and basically running this process, we work in these things I put to summarize in this frame, in this picture. We align, we agree in the product vision, we agree on what to build, we agree on prioritize and features and efforts. We research and gather information all the time. We are researching. We work in ideation and creation and validation, and also we refine all the time. This process start over again all the time, and we work in this way, in this part of the process. Is very important. And the last things, it's important that those processes pile up and are somehow related with each other. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to work in a linear way. So you can run two of these processes at the same time, or even skip one and then go back. So it's important to say that. So let's move on. In this part of the process, this is our why. We work on the idea deep, including as many details as you can. We refine the idea and validate it. I put here, to sum up the concept, the golden circle that explains Simon Sinek in Tech Talks. We can see here that the approach say that we have to work in the why first, then in how, and then in what. This is exactly we are talking about with product discovery. Basically, to discover our why, we use tools. So we guide us to answer. Basically, we have to answer what pain point are you solving, what is your market like, what kind of user will be interested in it, who are the people facing the problem. The goal is get to know your potential customer better than your competition does. How can you help them to solve it? Basically, define our famous painkillers and what other products are on the market to identify your weaknesses and strengths. So this part of the process is really very important for the next step. I mean, you can develop a beautiful website with any bugs, but if no one is interested in using it, you will waste your money. So I bring here two tools. One of them is Link Canvas and the other is Elevator Pitch. Let's take a look on Link Canvas tools. It looks like in this way. Link Canvas is a tool that helps us to mitigate risk and uncertainty. It is based on Alex Osterwelder business model Canvas, but this is the better approach for startup and new ideas. Link Canvas is a problem solution oriented approach and focus on customers. Basically, we have to fill in 9 boxes. There is no fixed order, but it's normally fill in this order. For customer segment, define our market target, problem we are facing, our revenue streams, our unique value proposition, where we add value, our unfair advantage, which is something special about your idea that your competition or competitor cannot copy. So channels to reach potential users, key metrics that we want to measure, cost structure about hosting, commercial, and so on. This is the idea here. This tool is very useful to easily communicate the business idea to development team, to stakeholders. So again, we have to build this in iterative and incremental way. So we start with some ideas, and then we can validate and refine on the way. We have some online tools to do that. I put some here: Miro, Canvasser, Cardboard. They great tools and has free plans. So the next step is the what or the bubble. We have the first bubble, why, and the next bubble is our what we are going to build. Basically, we have great tools to figure it out, like story mapping and prototype. The idea here is to work together with stakeholders and define the tailored task. So here we normally run interview with potential user. We design our story mapping. Also, we can build customer journey. And with this information, we can move on prototype and validate it. So let's talk about a little about story mapping. Story mapping enables using certain conversation, collaboration, and future prioritization to align and guide iterative product development. So you get feedback immediately with the interviews, and you adjust according to this. Because it's very dynamic, you can choose to solve certain part of the product and not necessarily the whole process. And then you identify users here, you identify process and activities, and then the tailored tasks to achieve these processes. So you can, there are 2 ways to implement it. You can use digital tools like Miro or Cardboard, or you can do in a physical way using Post-its in a blackboard. So this is other approach. And remember that the information that we generate here will be key in the development process. So the first version of the future to be built that we call backlog, we use this tool to build our backlog. So after this process, we will have a lot of valuable information. It will look like this way. We have the link canvas, we have our story mapping, we have the customer journey, or our empathy map. So we are ready to start our prototype. So, but something important here is about this graph, because it's a concept in Agile that the concept is called dual track. So we have 2 tracks. One track is the discovery track we are talking about right now, about this track, and the other is the delivery track. So the discovery track focuses on producing, testing, and validating ideas, and the delivery track work in turning those ideas into software product. And dual track in Agile enables product team to work on research and product development at the same time. This is a very important concept, because when we build software, we are constantly discovering things and delivering and building the software at the same time, not like 2 separate processes. So let's move on to the prioritization. In this step, we have already agreed on the why, the what. We have some detailed tasks, so we need to work on prioritization. There are several techniques for managing this. This is some of them. Let's talk about the first one is Moscow. I choose that because it's simple. It's an acronym that stands for 4 categories of initiative. We have the must-have initiative. The must-have are non-negotiable needs for your product, so you need to be included in the release. If you are unsure whether an item belongs here, ask yourself, what happens if this initiative is not included here, or will this product work without it? So then we have the should have initiative. The should have are important requirement, but not vital. Basically, you should have add value, but we don't focus now, but we could schedule them for the future release. Then we have our could have. They would have a small impact on the product if we left out. These are the could have. And the last, we have the will not have. These initiatives are not priority at this time, so we take note about them just in case we change our mind in the future. So a couple of rules of thumbs. This first one is that don't allocate more than 60% of the overall effort to must have initiative, and the other is dedicate about 20% of your total effort to could have initiative. So these 2 rules are very useful. Again, this is a new instant to discuss, to agree, and generate conversation about what we are gonna build. So let's talk about prototype. Here, we dig deep in our ideas as we can without coding. This is an instant to try and validate without coding. So there are different approaches to do that. For example, you can draw any piece of paper like this. You draw screens, you draw areas, you design a flow, a possible flow, you move on different screens. With this approach, you can validate information and validate processes. So maybe this is not the best approach to communicate, but it's useful as a first step overall if you are not familiar with tech tools. So another approach is to use mockup tools, for instance, Balsamiq. With this kind of tool, you can design a screen, flow screen. This tool is very user-friendly and you can share with others in different formats. Maybe the disadvantage here is that the screen components don't look like real. So you don't have a real UI because it's a mock-up. But I think that is still useful. To level up your prototype, you can use advanced tools as Figma or Adobe XD and build the prototype with real HTML component and styles. To sum up this part, we can prototype on paper or clickable version of your core feature with the main goal of validation. You can use different tools depending on your knowledge, budget, and the audience you address. So in this part of the process, help us to stand out important features, take unnecessary features out, and improve others based on user interaction and conversation. So let's move on to this slide. So only a few comments here about the UX and UI design. It is very important to focus on these topics in detail because the development process relies on detail, and this design can affect your budget. So, I mean, the components, layout, the way that they are filling, we have to explore in detail. So UX and UI design is also an iterative and incremental process. For example, the first version of our design, UX design, could be in this way. This is, we call this image low-fi image because we pay attention here in the layout, but not layout and components. and components, sorry, but we are not focused on color and styles. And then when we validate with user and development team, we can move on the final version that look like this way. This is hi-fi version. So at the end of the process of the UX and UI design, we have an outcome, a complete outcome of a screen on a complete set of components like this, when we have colors, buttons, icons, and so on. On the other hand, it could be that the UX and UI is not your focus. So in this case, you can use a well-designed template, which is a complete set of components that you can use and customize for your application. I put here a screenshot of a common template. With this approach, maybe you can save money in this first part, but you have to keep in mind that this template could be used by other users. So this is the disadvantage here. So we are reaching out the development process. So let's go. So far, we have been working on discovering and refining our business strategy, our clickable prototype, a list of features, we work in time and cost estimations. Now we have to run some tasks before the development, so that are very related. These tasks I put here all together. I will start with the first one. This is set up a development team. We have two picks here: hire in-house teams or outsource the tech team. You can also try, of course, a blend of these two approaches. But let's discuss about benefits or drawbacks of both approaches. Benefits. The first benefit could be cost reduction in outsourcing, because you assemble it, disassemble it whenever you want, and cost depending on the number of hours you consume is in timely basis. Also, there is a great value for money with nearshore services. We have access to expert and technical consultation, so you can answer to a world-class talent on any domain and get the job done for you quickly and efficiently. We can ensure a partnership. If you are satisfied with your project, you can continue working with the development team, or maybe move on a mixed team. Some potential drawbacks could be know-how and know-how about technologies, and the know-how about your idea too. So a couple of tips here. First, sign your an NDA. Also, if you're not familiar with technology and your budget allow you, you can hire a software consultant taking the role of CTO and to audit the whole process. Also, communication. We can improve it following an agile methodology. I'm going to talk about Scrum in a couple of minutes. Also, time zones are important. If you are working with different time zones, you have to assure that there are overlapping hours during the working day. And the last is quality, because concern about over code quality are valid here. A couple of tips. First, be sure you are hiring an experienced team. Secondly, use a well-defined testing strategy. We are talking about testing strategy. And finally, despite the team member could change along the time, try to keep the same team as much as possible. So we have great experiences as a provider. I really think that outsourcing your MVP development could prove to be a smart move. But let's move on to the other topics. This could be a team composition. In small MVP projects, you should have at least the first two, backend and front developers, and the role of Scrum Master or Project Manager, depending on your approach. The other roles can be covered at different moments in part-time way. So let's move on to the Agile framework. We have to pick one. So we normally use Scrum to develop software. There are others like Extreme Programming, Kanban, and among others. We could talk a whole hour about Scrum and detail inside the process, but here I'm gonna brief you on the main concepts of the Scrum framework due to lack of time. But let's start. Scrum is an empirical process based on 3 pillars. The pillars are transparency. Transparency means that the process and work be visible all the time. This transparency enables inspections. So inspection is aimed at inspecting frequently the progress. There are 5 events in Scrum to guarantee that. I will talk about the 5 events in a couple of seconds. Adaptation is the other pillar because that allows the team to quickly adjust things to get the proper outcome. So this is the 3 pillar. What is a Scrum in the simple way? Look like in this way is we can see in the picture. This is an iterative and incremental process. So I'm going to explain. So in Scrum, value is delivery in small and regular increment. We have the outcome here of the process. We get stakeholder feedback to validate and adapt these increments. The tasks to be done corresponds all the features that we identified previously with all the tools. And Scrum call this product backlog. So here in product value, we have all the features to be built. This is live. The product backlog is totally alive because we are putting things, removing things, improving, refining things all the time. So in Scrum, to explain Scrum, I'm going to explain the events and roles. First, the roles. We have a team here. So the first role inside the team is the product owner, is the person who decides we are going to build. Also, he's responsible for getting stakeholder feedback. Normally, is an entrepreneur or a person who the entrepreneur put in this role. But it's only one person. It's important to say that. Also, we have the development team, that is the people committed to creating the software. We normally have here developers, UX and UI designers, QA people, and so on. And finally, we have a Scrum Master. This Scrum Master is the person who helped in making easier the process and removing impediments. So I put this slide with all the roles, just in case you want to take a look. I try to brief the responsibilities. So let's talk about events in the Scrum. Scrum have 5 events. So has 5 events. So we have sprints. This is the sprint, the process here. I will put my mouse. So sprint are the heartbeat of the Scrum. A sprint is a time box of 1 month or less where the team work to achieve the product goal. So another event is the sprint planning. We have the sprint planning here. The sprint planning is conducted before every sprint, is attended by all the team. Here through conversation, the product owner and the development team select items from the product backlog. So in such a way, the development team can deliver them in one single sprint. So the list of selected items is now as the sprint backlog. So we pick up feature of here and put here to these events. So then the development team works on the sprint backlogs through the sprint. During the sprint, every day that helps to transparency and inspection, we have a daily meeting. We call daily Scrum, this meeting, which is another Scrum event. Daily lasts 50 minutes, and the development team answers 3 important questions. What did you do yesterday? What did you do yesterday? What will you do today? Are there any impediments? So after that, at the end of the sprint, and that part of the process, we repeat all the cycle along the months or along 15 days. At the end of the sprint, we have 2 more events: a sprint review, which is a kind of demo of the feature developed. The purpose is to get feedback and adaptation. And finally, we have other important event that is a sprint retrospective, where the team discuss on what went well, what went bad, and what could be improved. The goal is to improve the sprint, which will be held in the future. So I only gave you a short explanation about the process because the time, but I think you can understand the idea. I put here the events just in case you want to take a look about the complete goals and considerations. So let's move on to the initial task that we need to run. So this list, normally we must define a couple of things before starting the development process. It's good practice to define this, starting with the tracking tools. I put the first slide. Tracking tool, it's important to define a collaboration tool that support a Scrum framework, because we choose Scrum, where we can work as a team tracking and a project tracking. So I mean, we need manage team members, task assignment, status report, dashboard, and so on. There are well-known tracking software. I put some of them here, like Jira, Asana, GitHub, ClickUp. So the good news is most of them have free plans to get started. So here's a screenshot of Jira, that when we have a backlog, sprints, we can choose, this is our value, we can choose tasks and put in a sprint. So it's a good tool to move onward. So let's move on to the next slide. It's software architecture. In the MVP, we don't focus so much in architecture, but we need to define our first approach of this. We also need to define a database and development stack according to the kind of software we are building. But what exactly architecture is, I'm going to explain that. Software is built in layers or stacks. This group of layers and their distribution are called software architecture. In the picture, we can see a typical distribution of layer. We have first the presentation layer, then we have application layer, and lastly, we have data layer. Also, our software could interact with other application or services, and we normally call this part a service layer. Let's begin in this concept. So the first version, in a conceptual way, we divide into front end and back end. So the front end presents user interface to people using the product. Here we have browsers, mobile device, IoT devices, and so on, and it belongs on presentation layer. So in this presentation layer, we have some particular technologies like JavaScript, Angular, React, and so on. On the other hand, we have the backend. The backend sits on the server side and is responsible for handling and coordinating data. Backend belongs to these layers, application layer, in data layers, and also service layers. We have here the technology like Java, Python, Node, and C#, C++, and a lot Ruby, a lot of technology here. And we think here in architecture, database administration, security, backups, and so on. There are two ways to design the backend. It could be a single big program, one program managing all the tasks called monolithic architecture, or could be of a small and specialized program, a bunch of these programs called microservices. Normally, MVP start with monolithic architecture, so it's a good approach to start. But let me add some comment about the third part services, because it's important to know that they can leverage our development, which means new startup could avoid reinventing the wheel by using already available services. Some common services are payment services, yes, to use, to charge, but also we have other important services like Auth0, Okta, that are used to security and authentication. So they resolve all the things involved in that part of the process, and it's very easy to integrate. Also, we have SendGrid, for example, to send emails, to send SMS or WhatsApp. We have services like OnSCAD that work with appointments, availabilities, resources. I think there are a lot of free services that we have to leverage our MVP. So they are free up to a limited, but normally it's enough for our MVP. So I think it's very important to use. To sum up this part, we have to define here with the team the architecture, monolithic, for example, and the tech stack. The tech stack is the technology that I will use, or the team will use to build the software. For example, I can choose open source technology like React.js to the front end, or Node.js to the back end. And also we choose an open source database. It could be, for example, Postgres or MySQL. So also we can identify, or we could use any API or services to leverage our development. So we had to study a couple of them. So with this task, we are ready to start. So let's move to the testing strategy to talk about this important thing. It could be also a complete topic of this presentation, testing. Testing is oriented to define quality standards, implement checks, and ensure that the MVP meets this standard. So we can divide two big categories, automatic testing and manual testing. And then we can divide in two big categories, functional testing and non-functional testing. In MVP development, we normally implement these two, unit testing and integration testing, in automatically way, using libraries and software tools. To explain a little about this, unit testing is the validation and verification of one component or process written by the developer, but how I said is in automatic way. For example, in a login process, the unit test automatically will check that the process managed properly user enter, valid login and password, when the user enter an invalid login or password, and when the user skip some of this part and click in the button of login. And then the integration testing is a kind of testing when individual processes are combined and test as a group. So we have tools to do that in automatic way. So I think it's a good approach to define this strategy before starting the development process. So let's move on with a couple of more repository. Another thing that development team must decide is where we'll put the code. So there are several repositories like GitHub, GitLab, and many others. So repository could be implemented in a cloud base on-premise servers. We normally use cloud base. All of them have great features. They support full collaboration around the code. It's important because it's like a social network, but in code, implementing pipeline of operation, testing, automation, and so on. Also, we can use to backtracking to support branches, which are different version of your product. So I think this is a good start defining which one. Then other great approach is this DevOps, because Agile, DevOps fully support the Agile concept, the concept of quickly delivery. DevOps is development plus operations. Basically, with DevOps, we automate the process of publishing your solution in a server environment. It could be a test, a production environment. We have several tools to implement DevOps. They could be cloud-based or on-premise servers. For example, Jenkins, Octopus, and many others. There are two important concepts that I put here in this graph. The first one is continuous integration. Here, the developer upload, we said commit in development process, commit their code on a short period of time, 1 or 2 days, and each commit trigger an automated workflow on the server. So with these automated services, we can run testing, for example, and interrupt and warning to the development team when something goes wrong. This is very important to define and to implement before start the development process. So then we have continued development. Is everything is okay? The process automatically publish the solution in a server. It could be testing a producer environment. So in the last picture, I tried to put a typical pipeline of the DevOps when we build, test, deploy, and put the solution in the server, and also we measure and validate it. So the last a couple of seconds only, we have to define the server, implement where is the server. We have two approaches here on cloud basis or on premises services. Most of the case, we work with cloud-based approach. Exists a lot of great companies that offer this kind of services like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. So the important thing is with these services, we could implement our services, gain flexibility or agility, and also are very flexible in terms of price because you pay per use. So inside these services, we have different kind of implementation that when we can down our cost. So it's very important to analyze and to decide where or which one will be our approach in relation of that. So thank you very much for your time, for listening me. So we have the QA session. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, great job, great presentation. We had some questions come in the chat, but I guess, yeah, I'll see if they want to ask them directly on stage here. I know there was a couple from Marsh and yeah, a few others. If anybody, Marsh, did you want to unmic and ask, or should we go through the chat here?
Yes, please. Thank you for your patience, for staying here until the end.
This is Marsh. I had a question about when I was doing my user stories, I basically was just doing like a Google Docs, you know, like when user does this, this happens. And is there a better tool? Because it looks like that you had more of a graphical tool in your PowerPoint.
So a software tool for user store mapping?
Yes.
Yes. We use two of them. You can use Miro. I don't know how you're familiar with these tools. I can share a link here.
Thank you.
These have free plans, so it's a great tool that have templates to run the link canvas. So also other templates, but it's a great tool. I will share with you the links. A couple of seconds. Here you are. This is a great tool because they provide you templates and some ideas to start. So you don't start from scratch. You use some well-known template to an example to build the link canvas, or also the story mapping activity.
I appreciate that, because you get through it and you think, what am I forgetting? You know?
I put
Yeah,
the link in the,
Oh yeah, they got to sign in. Now they have to get the automation. This is the right email, or
yes,
oh yeah, I
yes,
forgot about that.
yes. Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Perfect. Yeah, great question there. And yeah, I'll open it up. I just saw Matt unmiked as well. Did you have a question you wanted to come up and ask?
Yeah, I was curious. I've heard it just over the last couple of days. A couple of people talking about the microservices and how it's better to develop the monolithic version first and then the micro. Can you explain why that is the case? Why it's better to start with the monolith?
Yes. I agree with the approach of start with monolithic, because microservice takes a long time to design, because you have to think like isolate programs that resolve only one part. So if your application will be for thousands of users, yes, it's a good approach microservice, because you can allocate in different servers and you can use different resources. But at the beginning and the MVP stage, you are trying an idea. So maybe it's not a good idea to spend time and money in this architecture, because it's more complex to be built. And it's better to start with a simple application that is called monolithic, and then validate and try to scale up. And if you have users and you scale up, you can move on a microservice approach. This is the idea there.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for your question.
Great. Yeah, any other questions here? Feel free to unmic and we'll bring you up to stage.
Oh. Actually, we're offering a 3-hour session.
Yes.
I wrote down our calendar. So feel free to choose a date and we can help you with all your MVP doubts.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
And if you want, you can share it with anyone you think they might need it.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great offer. Yeah, we'll follow up with the recording, the slides, and the offer on the Calendly link for everybody that came out today. And yeah, really looks like Marsh already booked an appointment with you. So
Okay.
there you go.
Great, March.
Yeah. No, I appreciate everybody coming out today. Yeah, great presentation, and yeah, appreciate all of your insights for our community.
Great. Thank you very much, all of you. And thank you, Jason, for the space. We are in touch.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great day.
Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye now.